host. But
yeah, cool. We are live. We're here in Medellin, Colombia, and we're doing a very special crossover episode between Epicenter and the Interop. We're here at Cosmoverse, which is the biggest Cosmos conference happening right now. Cosmoverse ended 2 days ago, and we're going to do a recap of what's been going on here this week in Medellin. I'm very pleased to be with my friend and co-host, Sunny Agarwal, host of Epicenter and co-founder of Osmosis, and the man himself, the man who made this all possible, the guy who brought us all here, hundreds of people, to fly to Medellin, Cryptocito.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think the crazy part for me is that we really managed to get everybody to come to Medellin, because I know a lot of people, they had some concerns about the city, about Colombia, right? When you hear it first time and you've never been here, your first thoughts are like, oh my God, it's dangerous. Everybody gets kidnapped and Pablo Escobar, drugs, this and that. But now people are here. And like, I hear people, they say, next year we're going to do it again here. Yeah. I don't want to leave. I think everybody's very excited. Just found out Sunny wants to see some hippos here. So there's a lot to see, a lot of cool, fun, exotic stuff. You also have a little story to tell. You can see on your Twitter, you posted that with the paragliding. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do here, and the people are amazing. The food is great. The city is just beautiful. A lot of good bars, good parties. Whatever you want, you can find it here, except for beach. That's probably the only thing that's missing here. But yeah, love Medellin. Had a great time here at Cosmoverse, and just thankful that everybody made it here and we had such a great time.
Yeah, there was definitely, I think, those like concern that a lot of people had. I mean, I was in Berlin a couple of days ago for another conference, and like people were talking about, hey, I got to get private security, and even I was thinking about, okay, do I bring my laptop? Should I bring my ledgers? You know, and then like as soon as we landed, as soon as we arrived in the city, like all those concerns kind of went away, and it was just like, hey, this is like a regular place. It has an interesting history, but as long as you're not like doing anything foolish, like trying to get paid talent on Tinder, or like scoring some drugs on the street, you're probably gonna be fine.
Yeah, we wouldn't have done it if we weren't 100% sure how the city is.
Yeah.
And I used to live here for a couple of years ago, so that's why I was very confident that everything will be fine. And
can you leak some alpha on where the next Cosmoverse is gonna be?
Unfortunately, it's too early for that, and I think
I heard some things.
Yeah, there's some rumors here and there. I mean, I think in general we want to make Cosmoverse in places that have high demand for crypto, but they don't have stuff going on every other week, right?
Yeah.
Like for example, if you look at Berlin, like in Berlin, half of the teams are based there. There's like stuff going on all the time. Like everybody knows the city. Medellin is exotic, but there's 50 million Colombians. There's a lot of people that want to get into crypto, right? We even had the Secretary for Innovation and Technology from the city of Medellin, from the mayor's office, right? And he even came the second day himself just to listen to the presentation.
Yeah,
that was honestly one of my favorite talks in the entire thing.
Yeah. It's really impressive what they've done, like everything that they're doing. I mean, of course, like, he's kind of pushing an agenda or whatever, but like, it seems very impressive, like all of the stuff they're doing here to like help bring innovation and like connectivity and have access for people to like learn how to program and things like that. It's super cool.
Yeah, I think they want to position Colombia or Medellin especially as like the software valley for Latin America. And like you could tell from this talk, and then there was also another governmental institution, they really want to push hard for that and give all the students free laptops, for example, and like just get them into this internet economy.
Yeah.
And I think crypto can hopefully absorb a lot of that, because people here, if they learn about DeFi, if they learn about even staking and having sovereignty for their finances, I think it can have a big impact here, right? Colombia also has high inflation, not as high as Argentina or Venezuela, but still, I think it's a net positive for the people to at least be aware what exists. And if they can make another $10 a month farming on Osmo, then why not? That's good for them, right? So yeah, and I think that's how we also look for other places to host Cosmoverse, is to look at places that have high demand, high population, maybe a cool city, right? I think a big factor of success for this year's Cosmoverse was also that Medellin is just an amazing city, right? So I think we also want to look at that. But yeah, we'll see. I think now we need a few weeks off, and then we'll travel a little bit and scout the next place.
Yeah. So, I mean, we haven't like properly introduced you. I mean, the people who listen, I think, to the Interop know who you are. I think maybe on the Epicenter side, some of the OG Ethereum people perhaps are not familiar with your work and your YouTube channel. So yeah, who is Cryptocito?
Yeah, I mean, I started my crypto journey in early 2017, and I've pretty much done everything wrong for 2 or 3 years. Aped into the next big thing, lost everything, believed everything, a bit naive for a long time, but I think everybody has to go through this once. But yeah, then when 2019 came, and I actually lived in Medellin here, I saw that I feel like we've bottomed out, and I feel like we're ready for the next cycle. So I was preparing for that. I was reading a lot. I did a lot of events all around the world. I did a lot of research, networking. I think also talking to people at events physically is one of the best things and ways to learn about crypto, to build up a network. And then sometime around when COVID started, I just bought a camera and started to record because like I said, I've done so much wrong. I sent coins to the wrong address. I got hacked. I had coins on wallets that don't exist anymore, on exchanges that don't exist anymore. And I think I just wanted to share that learning with people that are maybe new to crypto because it helped me in the beginning to learn from others that have done this before. And then, I don't know, in the beginning, it was just random. I just clicked record and talked about whatever. But then I found Cosmos, thanks to Jack Zampolin. He got me into it. He had a call with me. This was pre-IBC, and he walked me through everything, and he was so passionate about it. And then the rest is history. I mean, from there, I just went deeper, connected with everyone. I also like the ideology a lot about Cosmos because I think before that, this Bitcoin tribalism came up really big, and I really didn't like that. And also, I think crypto YouTube was, I think still is, but back then even more so, was flooded with Bybit leverage traders, referral links here and there. And I just don't think that's too valuable. I mean, everybody can do whatever they want, but I just wanted to make a more fundamental content channel. And now I'm just basically all in on Cosmos on that end. But I'm also very interested in other ecosystems. I'm not just only Cosmos, but that's where I spend most of my time. And that's it.
I think we all share that. Yeah.
Yeah, your YouTube channel, I know for a lot of people, it's like how they got into Cosmos. So many people are like, oh, I got into the ecosystem through you. It's also really funny because I think I've been on your podcast, on your channel a bunch of times, and you're always interviewing me. So it's really fun to turn the tables a little bit.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed that actually. It's cool. I don't have to prepare much. So.
Yeah.
So how did you go from having a YouTube channel and a lot of Cosmos videos to organizing Cosmoverse?
I mean, I've done events before that. I've actually done one here in Medellin before. I've done one in Buenos Aires, like a general crypto event. And when I was living in Shanghai for my exchange year.
When were you living in Shanghai?
2018.
2018, okay.
Yeah, I went there because I studied Chinese and economics in Germany, but then I had one exchange year in China. And that's where I met other guys, and we co-hosted Crypto Mondays in Shanghai, which was really cool. It was a big success. So I always had this background of doing events, getting people together. I think that's also what I love, my skill is just connecting people.
Yeah.
Right. And the goal for this Cosmoverse was also to just get all of you guys together, lock the doors for 3-4 days, and then you guys talk. And I just enjoy it. But so it was the background and the passion just for connecting people. And then it was coincidence and luck, I guess, and the right timing. When I moved to Lisbon last year, that I also met the right guys with Basil, Fabi, and Yuri, because I could never do this alone, right? So when we saw that, hey, there's Solana Breakpoint, and there's ETH Lisbon and ListCon and whatever, and Avalanche House, why is there no Cosmos event? There needs to be a Cosmos event, at least in this week, right? At least one meetup. Because I knew you all were coming anyways, right, for all these Ethereum events.
Yeah.
And then we basically came together and we said, let's make a meetup at least. And then this meetup idea, so maybe we can have some presentations, and then maybe we can even fill a full day. And then it turned out to be 2 full days. 700 people showed up. But I think, this was also, I think, the first time after years that everybody came together in Cosmos. So it was just the right timing, luck, and the right city to start.
Like the first Cosmos conference and kind of the only Cosmos conference that existed before that was the Interchain conversations that happened in Berlin, and it was like this kind of, it was cool, like to see like this first Cosmos conference, and there was a hackathon, and of course like Cosmwasm was built there and everything. But then like I remember seeing Cosmoverse, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, who's organizing this thing? Is the ICF behind that? ICF, like who is this? And I mean, like I totally get this whole like, hey, let's do a meetup, and then it turns into this big thing, because like we also had sort of a similar thing with Nebular, where at first I wanted to do like a kind of side event with ECC, and then it became like this. I mean, not as big as Cosmoverse, but it was like 300 people, and like and now we want to turn it into a conference. So like, things in Cosmos like really are accelerating, and the size of this and the events that are happening like just really, I think, proves that.
Even like this year's Cosmoverse compared to last year, like it feels like it's like, I don't know how many people showed up, but it feels like at least 3 times bigger, or at least with the energy and everything. And and we're in a bear market now, so that's, and also
there's no bear market in Cosmos.
and also, like you said, like last year it was like sort of co-located with like all these other conferences, so there was a lot of spillover people. I know there wasn't great security, so I know everyone was just like walking in without tickets, which is great. They were learning about Cosmos, but here it's like, no, everyone who was here came specifically just for this event, right? They had to come all the way to Medellin for like Cosmoverse. So it just shows like how much the community has grown in the last 1 year even.
Yeah. No, I think we also got a little bit of credibility, obviously, also for Colombia from DEF CON, right? Which is happening in a week or 2 weeks in Bogota. But I think, like you say, I mean, I know you told me this in the beginning, like you believe that Cosmoverse deserves its own conference, right? Not cloud chasing other events or other communities. Like we're big enough to do this. And I think this year Cosmoverse has proven that we actually are. And I think in total, we had over 1,500 people there.
Insane.
Yeah, that's crazy. There were like people showing up. I didn't even know, like it's crazy people.
I may have told people that, hey, if you don't have a ticket, I was like, just show up. Or we turn you away.
No, I don't think we turn anybody away. At least I'm not aware of that. But I think from over 35 countries, that's the crazier part to me. Like there were people like Jacob, right? Jacob flew in from Vietnam.
Yeah.
Like that's a crazy trip. That's a 40-hour trip. And now he's going back with an Osmo tattoo. I don't know. We can talk about this later.
Yeah. But we got to talk about the legendary stuff that happened.
There's people that flew in from Australia, from Japan, Hong Kong, South Korea a lot.
Yeah, Korea, a lot of Koreans.
The US,
India.
with people from India, a lot of them, exactly.
Tons of people from Europe.
Yeah, so I think that's the cool part. And like you say, like they just came for this specifically. And also like a lot of Latinos, right? Like we got people from Argentina, Mexico, Peru, Chile.
The big team from
Brazil,
Dominican.
The Dominicans are crazy. Like, and you can also tell, like, talking about where to host Cosmoverse next, right? Like you can see where already small communities exist, right? Like the Dominican Republic is a small country, but they have already like 30, 40 hardcore cosmonauts, right? And they're super pumped and excited to maybe one day host Cosmoverse there. And why not Punta Cana? So
that'd be
some
cool.
beach vibes there.
It was insane. I mean, like I think all the people that were staying in this whole area were all cosmonauts, and I just like see people with Cosmos t-shirts everywhere. Like the locals listening, going like, "What's this Cosmos thing?" Like,
even some Uber drivers either came to the conference or like, "Oh yeah, you're also from this Cosmos event." So like the locals are hearing about it. And funny thing, like here, the restaurant down there, which is actually a big restaurant, they just told me yesterday when everything was over, they told me that. This is the first time ever that we're running out of food. And it's like crazy. Like every single room in the hotel was booked. They have 300 rooms. I think nearly 200 were from cosmonauts. They obviously still have other people here. And it's an international big hotel, right? Like people just come here anyways. But nearly like every room was booked. We booked every single room for the conference, like every single meeting room, every single conference room, 3 different floors. I think from like the amount of like detail that went into this, they never had this here.
The Regen team booked an entire hotel I was talking to Greg, and he's like, "Yeah, we just went on Airbnb. We booked like all these rooms in this boutique hotel, and it turns out we just had the whole hotel. So they were like throwing parties in the sauna and everything. Yeah,
It's wild.
yeah.
But,
So what were the kind of big highlights for you guys here in terms of announcements? I mean, like obviously there's the Atom 2.0 announcement. Maybe we can talk about that, but yeah, maybe before we talk about that, what kind of other important highlights?
you want to start?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of different things. I think, you know, I got to talk about some of the mesh security stuff that we've been thinking about for a long time, and just, you know, I think it's something that we've kind of all intuitively thought about and knew that was going to happen in Cosmos, but like it was able to like, I don't know, formalize it a little bit and put the ideas down into like comprehensible, like, so that, yeah, I think that was really fun. And then on top of that, just like, I don't know, just like seeing a lot of the more underground projects, like talk a little bit more, like Babylon, for example. That was
super cool. Yeah. I did an interview with Fisher.
That's nice.
Come out this week.
Yeah. So that's really cool. Got it, you know, and just like seeing an update on like what everyone is working on. Yeah. So that was really just fun to see.
So yeah, let's talk about this mesh security thing, because like you said, it's something that, I mean, certainly I've been thinking about, like, you know, in sort of abstract ways, but never really, you know, put a name on it, but this idea that basically chains can secure each other and create this kind of like strong bond between like all chains. You know? Yeah, the idea is just this, is that, you know, the point of Cosmos is, okay, interchain security is not supposed to be a hub and spoke system, right? Yeah. If we just end up building another hub and spoke system, we're no different than every other ecosystem, right? Polkadot, Ethereum with their rollups. Everyone is building like one central chain and then a bunch of things that depend on it. And that's like, you know, that's cool. But like the point of Cosmos is like to build this like truly decentralized system, no one chain at the center. And to do that, how do you make that work, right? So, or how do these how can we have a network of many sovereign chains? No, I often go around, pitch this app chain vision to people, but then first question is always like, wait, but how is this all going to be secured, right? Like, don't you need like Ethereum level security or Polkadot level security? And the answer is all of the app chains are going to secure each other. So it's kind of like the NATO model, where it's like, okay, NATO is a collection of sovereign countries. They all have their own governance systems. They don't interfere in each other's internal politics, but they have a joint security mesh where if any one country gets attacked, all of them sort of rush to each other's defense. I love how you always bring this back down to geopolitics. Like the geopolitics analogies that you provide to kind of, you know, help understand how this is going to work are so effective. And when you gave this slide with like the NATO, all the NATO countries and like all the alliances that they have, and then also this kind of like this shared security that exists between them, I think is like a really accurate analogy of what this might look like. Yeah. So, you know, I think that's So I you know, we've always thought a lot about, like, when we're designing Cosmos, like two. It's a little bit of a technical system, but it's also like a political economic system, as Bucky likes to say. And, you know, when we're thinking about the technical side of things, we often look at the internet for inspiration. But when we're looking at like the political economic situation, we really do like to think about like, oh, how do communities form? You know, how do sovereign communities interact with each other? And, you know, the goal, as Bucky likes to say, what we're building is, you know, we're not building the world computer in Cosmos, right? We're building the community computers, right? And how do communities interact in the real world? Their blockchains are going to have like similar interfaces or, you know, relationships as well.
How far do you think is interchain security, or the end game for interchain security? Because there's like version 1, obviously, which is very static in that sense, and then version 2, version 3. How far is mesh security? Because I still have to listen to your talk because I was just running around. I couldn't. That's what plane rides are for, man. Just download all the talks. But how far is that away, mesh security, your mesh security idea, from the end game of ICS?
Yeah, I think it's obviously a little bit more complicated for sure than the V1. What mesh security really is it's the V3 design, but run bidirectionally instead of just one chain providing security to the others. they're all just
secure each
using
other.
V3 in
They all
multi
secure each other.
directions. From my understanding, I believe the Informal team had actually paused development on V2 and V3 because they thought there was like issues with it. And so what we were able to do was like help them explain like, oh, this is actually how you solve this issue and this issue and this issue. And now I think they're like pretty on board again with moving towards this idea. So I was chatting with Jihan yesterday about like, I think they're also really excited about mesh security as well, and are going to help like build this. I know Jake from Juno is like so excited. He's like ready to start hacking on it this weekend at Hackwasm, and he's like, okay, we're gonna start building a prototype right now. Like him and Ethan Fry and I think we're gonna try to like build some primitive pieces today. Obviously, this is all gonna be well. This is actually an interesting thing. It's like kind of like randomly independent. One thing I think I've realized by just talking to people at this conference and just like seeing how the state of development is. I think that we have to start treating Cosmoverse as a more like core piece of the Cosmos stack, where it's just like so much faster to do like really quick prototyping in. The Cosmos SDK is really supposed to be this like kernel level code where if you need to touch the deep stuff like staking or how transaction fees work, that stuff should really be in like in the SDK. But like DeFi logic or new IBC protocols. That stuff is way faster to write in IBC. And I think
Cosmosm.
In Cosmosm. And I think that like all Cosmos chains actually going forward, or Cosmos SDK chains at least, should implement some sort of permissioned Cosmosm, like similar to how Osmosis does. And I think chains that don't, honestly, are going to be like kind of left behind. We've actually added, we have our first core module that we've written in Cosmosm now, which is IBC rate limiting. It's like a way of, dealing with hacks and stuff where it's like, it says, hey, only 20% of an IBC channel TVL or whatever can go every 6 hours or something, right?
So basically all your IBC transfers are going through Cosmosm. They're not going through the kernel level.
Well, they go through the Cosmos SDK because the IBC module is in the SDK, but then when it receives an IBC packet, it passes it to the Cosmosm contract that does the rate limiting, and then the Cosmosm contract. It's like the middleware stack is in Cosmosm.
This is so interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So with regards to like this permission Cosmosm thing you just mentioned, can you explain what you mean by that? Why would it be permission? Why wouldn't it just be permissionless?
Because I don't think that, you don't want a permissionless chain where anyone can just start deploying whatever you want.
Right.
It's just more of a way of like.
Oh, I see. So you're saying that chains should deploy Cosmosm as a way to implement other sorts of functionality for their chain, and at a minimum, and then perhaps like some other like.
Exactly. Yeah. So like this IBC rate limiting contract, we are going to add it to Osmosis, but I'm sure other chains will want to add it as well, right?
Okay. So
it's just a way of iterating more quickly on features.
Yeah. Okay. Like as opposed to say like the Ethereum route where they've built all these core functions like into the EVM. In Cosmos, it would be better to build them as contracts, and you have the core modules call them.
Exactly.
Okay. Very interesting.
So one of the things that our team has been working on a lot over the last 3 or 4 months is like deepening the relationship, like how easy to. Because right now you have a lot of teams who are like very Cosmos SDK focused, right? Like they don't use Cosmosm. Then you have like a lot of teams that are very Cosmosm focused. So like the Confio team that builds Cosmosm, they kind of really only think in terms of Cosmosm.
Yeah.
Juno is very much like their core chain is very, very minimalistic, and they have a lot of cool logic on the Cosmosm side. But Osmosis, we like have a lot of stuff happening on the Cosmos SDK side and a lot of stuff happening on the Cosmosm side. And so we've had to spend a lot of time like making the interaction process between these two systems like very seamless. And so I think that tooling that we built is going to start to be able to be used by more chains as well.
And what do you think in that context then around the Prop 69 implementing Cosmosm on the Cosmos Hub, which failed? And now they're building Neutron, which is a smart contract platform. So what are your thoughts on that for the hub?
Oh, I voted yes on Prop 69. So I think it was like a no-brainer.
Yeah. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, hearing you now, I think that perhaps it makes sense to implement it on the Cosmos chain on the Cosmos Hub chain as kind of a permission thing, so that more functionality will come to it. Yeah, I also felt that having Cosmosm on the Cosmos Hub was not. Yeah, I think I voted no on that as well. And like, yeah, it's not the role of the Cosmos Hub,
So I think
especially after Atom 2.0.
Prop 9 wasn't for permissionless Cosmosm. It was for permissioned Cosmosm.
Oh, was it? Okay.
And like I said, I don't think it's the point of it is not to add more functionality to the hub necessarily, right? I think it was to be able to like add new IBC protocols, or for example, the composable team is building the substrate IBC, right?
Yeah.
But how it's actually the IBC client is actually going to be written in WASM, and so it's like I don't know. I feel you need to. Just more and more of the stack is going to move towards that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe after Osmosis implements this and starts building useful features in Cosmos, maybe other chains will start following that model.
I mean, that's kind of what I think. That's what our plan is. Like, we're just start the mesh security process with chains that have Cosmosm enabled. So we'll have Osmosis and Juno and Stargaze and everyone start doing the mesh security, and then hopefully more chains will start to add it.
So Atom 2.0. Big announcement. Did you plan this before with the?
Did you know about it before? Did you know the details?
No, I didn't know anything.
You didn't know the details beforehand?
No, I mean,
you didn't see the right paper?
I think I could have pushed for it, like for send me the white paper draft, whatever. But like I didn't even ask too much. I wanted to get surprised myself. But yeah, it was cool. It was awesome. Also that they chose Cosmoverse to like share all this, like because you asked earlier for announcements, and like across the board, almost every presentation had some alpha in it. Some big announcements, right? Stargaze, they also announced some stuff, intercooled staking or something like that with their NFTs. If you haven't listened to this, then do it. This is pretty cool stuff. So I think Atom 2.0, I mean, this was, I think, for a lot the By the Rumors Sell the News event for the conference.
Yeah.
But then also Jelena dropped the couple of consumer chains that are coming, with USDC obviously being a big one, but you guys also have been involved in, I think, getting this done. I think Atom 2.0 is obviously a long play, but I think it's the first time that there's a specific roadmap for the Cosmos Hub. And we'll see how it plays out. But I think there's still... I think that they're putting it on the forum now, then there's still some feedback, and then it has to go on chain. So I think it still needs a little bit, maybe also to be refined. But I think in general, it's a pretty cool thing. Touches on a lot of the things regarding the hub and Atom, not just the inflation, but also governance, some of the additional utilities, right, to also make the Cosmos Hub the service provider for other chains without having to enforce dependencies on the hub. So we'll see. I think I'm excited about it, but I'm excited about a lot of chains in Cosmos.
I think I'm quite optimistic about Atom 2.0. I think that it was like a necessary thing in order to bring actual value and utility to the Cosmos Hub and sort of set it on a track to remain relevant long term. As an Atom holder, I'm like quite excited about it. Also, as someone who's like been a core believer in the Cosmos vision, like the app chain vision, and like everything that you guys have been working on for the last 6 years. I think it's great. I think I wrote this blog post a couple of weeks ago, basically like asking a question like, can interchain security save the Cosmos Hub from becoming irrelevant? And I think like Atom 2.0 also is a step in the right direction. I do think that the Cosmos Hub needs many more chains using interchain security if it wants to stay relevant. I think like this is a great announcement set, right? Like five or six chains. So basically like there's going to be Stride, USDC. There's this Flash that's a MEV chain, staking, liquid stake.
Quicksilver.
Well, Quicksilver is not. No, they haven't like yet announced it yet.
Is Stride going to be using it?
Stride is going to be using it. Yeah.
But
I tweeted about it, but there's about 4 or 5 of them. Neutron, of course, but I think that there needs to be a real concentrated business development effort on the part of, say, like the ICF and Informal and all these teams to start doing business development. And I think that there's an opportunity. I talked about this on the panel that I hosted with Marco and Owner. There's an opportunity to really position Cosmos and the hub as sort of an enterprise grade ecosystem where more like traditional companies and institutions can start using Cosmos. And the way I see this is the Cosmos SDK is absolutely perhaps like the best technology stack to start building decentralized applications and progressively decentralize them. So you can literally use the Cosmos SDK as like a database, right? It's just like a transactional database that allows you to build logic into it. And then over time, companies can start opening up their permission model by adding validators, adding partners to the validator set, whitelisting users, even maybe doing KYC with whitelisted addresses if they need to, right? If they're like regulated in such a way that they need to be compliant, they can do that. And then over time, essentially like plug into the internet in the same way that companies in the 2000s and like 90s and 2000s were going from intranet to intranet by enabling IBC. I think that's, I don't know like who needs to do this, but like someone needs to build the framework and sort of handhold companies through this process. And I don't know if it's the ICF or like the Builders Program or what, but like it needs to happen.
Yeah. One of our like biggest investors, it's Ribbit Capital.
Yeah, you told me about them.
But they, they are one of the biggest like traditional fintech VCs. They were early in any fintech company you can imagine. And then they've been doing crypto for a while as well. They're very early in Coinbase, but one of the reasons that they like bet big on Osmosis was that they have this giant fintech portfolio, and they just believe that like one day all of these fintech companies are going to have their own blockchains, and Cosmos is the stack to do that, and Osmosis is the center of Cosmos, and so they're like, okay, that's this is why but that idea that like, hey, all of these companies are going to start to migrate onto their own sovereign blockchains.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Like, I mean, when we were building Stratum in 2015, we were already using Tendermint with our customers, and the challenge that we had back then was that there was no ecosystems, right? We were trying to build consortiums, which like
there was no Cosmos SDK.
There was no Cosmos SDK also, but like the challenge that we had is that we were trying to build consortiums, and it just wasn't working because like that's an enormous feat. But if you have an ecosystem that already exists, where there's economic activity, where there's liquidity, where you can build a business and start sort of like redesigning existing business models to work on blockchain, like Cosmos is the perfect place to do it because there's activity there. But not only that, because you're as a company, you're able to build your application in a permissioned or more like controlled way, and then over time, and depending on your business needs, open it up to other players in the ecosystem if you wish, which is something that's just not possible on Ethereum because you share the security with all the chains, you share the bandwidth with all the chains. I mean, maybe with Ethereum too, like that's changing a little bit, but Cosmos just seems like the perfect way to do that.
Yeah, but I think we also see that we actually have proof for that already, because we see from both sides, right? At the institutional side, there were also a couple of big VCs here at the conference. And they didn't make a big thing out of it, but they would just want to make their homework.
Yeah.
And then I had a live stream last week with Fanak, which is a $90 million fund. And this guy, like, we're just talking on Telegram right now, and he's like, man, this is cool. So
was he here?
He's like, he couldn't be here this time, but he watched, or I think at least is watching all the presentations, or at least the ones that he's interested in on the stream. But yeah, they're super interested and hyped about it. And I think the fact that Cosmos is not top down in that sense, where there's one organization that does all the marketing, all the conferences, all the investments, all the BD, but there's like different teams that all work together, sometimes in a good way, sometimes there's drama. But I think that's very interesting. That's a different vibe that we have in Cosmos as to compared to any other ecosystem. You can even see that with Cosmos. I mean, what we did with Cosmos, we couldn't do it in other ecosystems. Like if we did it in Solana, like Solana Foundation or whatever is running Breakpoint, like we can't do that.
Yeah.
IOHK is running the Cardano stuff. Parity is running all the Polkadot stuff. Near Foundation is running all the new conferences and all this stuff. We could only do it in Cosmos. So because there is no central giant entity that runs everything and that wants to be everywhere. And I think that's a cool thing. And the second thing is also project-wise, you see DYDX is the best example, obviously. I think they had some people here, actually. but they just chose Cosmos for the app chain architecture and because it fulfills whatever they want to build. And you see more and more projects now doing their homework, potentially also migrating over to Cosmos, either their own chain or building on any Cosmos chain out there. And there's multiple out there that you can use or use interchain security. Like there's so many different ways. And I feel like it's all coming together. I think over the past years, ever since I joined, Cosmos was never the flashy project that had a lot of hype and crazy stuff going on. But I think now it's all coming together in a very organic way and very naturally. And I think that's the most sustainable way. Even though Atom didn't pump on the Atom 2.0 announcement, I think long term, Atom and all the other coins in the ecosystem will gain more and more market shares because it's just built in a more mindful and sustainable way. And you can see this across all teams, like literally the Osmosis team and the Stargaze team, the Juno team, like they're just so focused on building. And also that attracts real users, real protocol revenue. I think that's way more sustainable than having a quick pump because some VC's buying it and then slowly it dies off for a long time. So
yeah, I think it's a very. There was another conference going on at the same time in Singapore, Token 2049, and like everybody was saying there's like 65% VCs here, and
Nick,
not very
Nick the Celestia co-founder, made a tweet like, "Thank God this conference is taking place. It takes all the boring VC guys to this event, and we can have fun here with Cosmoverse."
But on the note of like centralized sort of planning, there is I think some debate around whether or not it helps long term to like align people on like shared visions and aligning people on like building the right things. In Cosmos we don't really have that same sort of centralized planning as perhaps in Solana or some of these other ecosystems that you mentioned, but there is the ICF, there is interchange MBH and informal systems, and to some extent Tendermint, Ignite, and they still hold like I think a lot of the power and perhaps like sort of mimetic power as like these institutional organizations within Cosmos. There was a presentation by Ethan Buckman, and I also did an interview with him. If you want to watch that, it's on the channel, where he talks about redesigning the ICF. What do you guys think of what do you think of the ICF, and like does it need to change in a more sort of centralized planning, more in the in the route of like Solana or some of the other ecosystem, or does it need to just be kind of a steward that helps the ecosystem go in a direction?
I think Sunny can talk more about because you used to work at Tendermint, right? So you can talk more from an insider perspective. But for me as an outsider, I think it's cool to see how these institutions exist and help fund projects, the ecosystem development, all these kind of things, and also conferences. But they don't want to be necessarily the center and the central point of attention and everything, right? They didn't want to say, hey, this, make this the interchain, the ICF conference, right? They gave us the support. They came full force, informal, sent 20 people, a lot of people from the ICF here, a lot of people from Ignite here. And they just want to be part of it, but they don't want to enforce to be in the center. And I think that's really cool to see. And then I think founder-wise, right? Like if you look at any other ecosystem, you can see one or two main figures, right? We had it in Terra with Do, we have Charles and Cardano, even Vitalik. Even though the Ethereum Foundation probably doesn't hold the majority of the ETH in circulation, still Vitalik has big impact on the development and roadmap of Ethereum in that sense. And in Cosmos, I think most people don't even know who Jay and Ethan are. Like they're super passionate, but they don't also want to be in the center and get all the attention, right? So I think that's a net positive for the ecosystem, because it doesn't really make any dependencies. And if you can see like in Cardano, right? Like Charles is so controversial for many, and people just don't like him, and that's why they don't like Cardano in general. But I think we'll never have this problem in Cosmos.
For me, the test is
unless Sunny gets crazy. I don't know.
I'm still convinced that Jay's departure was 20%. I'm 20% convinced that he was like performance art. It was his way of pulling a Satoshi.
That was a very smart move, if that's true. But I think that Cosmos survived this I think in 2020, a lot of people thought Cosmos would be dead. And like I said on stage, the way I got in is because I bought some atoms somewhere and I didn't even know. I forgot about it. And I'm like, okay, should I do my research or should I just sell it? And luckily, I started doing my research. But at that time, I didn't even know what Cosmos was. Like, there was no one talking about it. It was completely dead on social media.
Yeah.
Because it went through this self-destruction, but survived. And I think, also now with the most recent division of Tendermint into 3 new entities,
I
think
still
that
don't understand
splits
what's
it up.
going on there. I would love for someone to explain what the fuck's going on here and who's behind what. But yeah, it could be another episode maybe.
Yeah, but I think that just like further dilutes their power and impact. And I think,
Hey, I think the test
that's
here
amazing.
it's simple. It's like, look at any crypto ecosystem, and is there one person essentially that, like, if that person gets hit by a bus, would the community continue to exist? And I think that in Cosmos, I don't know who that person is. Like, I don't know, like, one person in Cosmos, like, if something were to happen to them, that the ecosystem would cease to exist. For other ecosystems, I really think that that's really kind of debatable. And I mean, I think it's great. I think it also creates some challenges in terms of coordination. But if personally, I think the ICF's role and sort of these institutions, I think their role needs to be to just kind of steward and curate in a very light touch way the sorts of things that the ecosystem work on and like the direction of the ecosystem. And so, like, I think Bucky, he sets sort of a vision, and like I think also Zaki and of course yourself, Sunny, like you're all very influential, and you guys help set sort of broad directions, in the ICF and these institutions that can play that role. I do think that the ICF needs to be more transparent though, and sort of more open generally. Like, I feel that it's sort of an opaque organization that it's been hard for a lot of folks to kind of like understand what they're doing, or who's responsible for what or whatever. And like, if they can just be sort of providing more on the ground support, I think it would be great.
I think one thing that's kind of good that's happening right now is the ICF has always been a little bit being pulled in 2 directions, and it was unclear a little bit whether they were supposed to be the like foundation for Cosmos, the ecosystem, or for the Cosmos hub, the chain, right?
Yeah.
And these are 2 very different things.
Yeah.
And I think part of like this structural reorgs that's happening right now is like the hub team that was at the IG is going to be moving to Informal. And so that's going to like, I think Informal is taking on a little bit more of this role of being like a lead dev team for the hub, while now the ICF can focus on being not hub focused, but being ecosystem focused. And so that's part of like what we're doing as well with the new builders programs and stuff, where it's like currently the ICF's its main treasury is all in atoms, right? And it's using atoms to like fund a lot of these open public goods. But like, I think that the public goods funding should be resilient against like just the even if Atom doesn't make it, but the Cosmos ecosystem does, we should, public goods should still be being funded. And so so what we're building towards is making sure that like, hey, more chains are able to contribute to this like pool of capital that are working on public goods. So like, if you're working on core Cosmos SDK stuff or IBC stuff, you're not getting paid in just Atom, but you're getting upside of Osmo and Juno and Secret and everything, like all this whole stuff. And then also just like coordinating better on like, how do we market the ecosystem as a whole, like getting this like narrative around the IBC and the interchain.
On the note also of like who is running the show, I think in Cosmos we still have, or like all these teams, they still have 1 or 2 people that you associate the project with. Like for you, in Osmosis, a lot of people associate that with you. In Stargaze, a lot of them are associated with Shane. But I think, like you said earlier, like if one of them would get hit by a bus, I mean, there's still so much behind that, right? Like so many other very smart developers that are also very well connected with everyone. I think the Cosmos development is also like a mesh network, right? It's like everybody's like helping each other, and they're like all very collaborative. And I don't, honestly, I mean, I've been around in other ecosystems also before Cosmos, but I've never seen something like that. Everyone else is more competitive, and like they're more tribal about their own stuff. And I feel like in Cosmos, it's more of a joint effort between all these teams. And even though you fuck it up sometimes, if you are willing to make it better next time, I think there's always still conversations going on. Like, I think people are not really salty about it, at least on the developer side. On Twitter, of course, different thing, but yeah, I think the builders in Cosmos are very collaborative, and I think that's the real core strength of the ecosystem. So, yeah.
So Atom 2.0, what do you guys think? Will it save the hub?
Price target, Atom. I don't know.
Price target.
There's parts of Atom 2.0 that I like, and there's parts that I don't.
Okay. What do you like? What don't you like?
Parts that I like, I think the allocator process, like, this is something I've been pushing for a long time, which is, the Cosmos Hub has a high market cap. It should be using its community pool to invest in new projects and help bootstrap them. And, Osmosis has been doing this for a while, right? Like we do these loan swaps. We did it with Stargaze. We've done it with Axelar. But I think that and that's how Osmosis has been able to build close relationships with a lot of these projects. And I think the Cosmos Hub should start doing similar things as well, using its much larger community. Well, much larger economic might right now.
Okay.
So I think that's makes a lot of sense. And but then things like the interchain scheduler, I don't really think make that much sense. We had a panel on MEV.
I missed it, but I'm going to watch it on the plane.
Multiple people have told me it was their favorite panel. It got a little spicy for sure. But yeah, so I just don't know if I'm not sure who the customer of the interchain scheduler from the Cosmos Hub is going to be. When I think it's going to be more. Chains are going to want to control their own MEV capture, and so it doesn't make sense for Osmosis, for example, to use the hub's interchain scheduler, for example.
Yeah, I think the scheduler is primarily for consumer chains, right, on the hub.
I was even talking to the Neutron team. Even they were it's still an opt-in thing, and they're like, "Wait, we would not. Why would we want to do that?"
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I think the allocator is definitely very interesting. Also, that the Cosmos Hub has a stake in other networks. What do you think about the inflation monetary policy implementations or proposal, at least?
To be completely honest, I didn't read that part. That's the least interesting. I hear about features and product.
I think it's very cool because it creates a revenue stream for the community pool, and I think that's super important because there's now, I think, less than 1 million Atom in the community pool. Osmo, how much Osmo is in the Osmo pool? A lot.
Close to 40 million Osmo.
Yeah, so that's crazy, right? That's $45 million or 43, and the hub has 14, something like that. So I think there needs to be definitely a revenue stream. I think with that in mind, they also propose now to have a 9 months high inflation of Atom, where some of it goes into the community pool, and then it goes down gradually, I think 10% per month or something like that, to a floor of 300K Atom per month, which would bring down the inflation, I don't know in numbers, but a lot. And I think with that in mind, Atom can also, I know we talked about this also a long time ago, but that Atom can be the money of Cosmos. And I think monetary policy is a big thing about it. But I think with that in mind, and also some of the utilities that I mentioned, I just briefly skimmed through the governance part. There's also a whole governance section in the white paper. I don't know if you read through that, but I think there's a lot of interesting stuff, but I think this is also stuff that is probably more long-term. This needs to be seen. I think short-term, the monetary policy adjustments are probably the most important thing on that.
Yeah.
Because, it needs to generate revenue for the pool and also be more sound money in that sense.
Yeah. Do you guys think that other chains, will Osmosis start adopting some of these tools, the allocator, or reviewing its monetary policy in order to make it more sound money?
Osmo is pretty cool.
I'm going to argue that Osmosis has already been doing most of these things. We've already been doing loan swaps. We've been working with Skip to build MEV systems into the protocol already. We've had staking derivatives for a long time, and we just called it superfluid staking, but it was staking. It is a form of staking derivatives, right? And then, interchain security, we're working towards the mesh. So I don't know. I feel like this is actually stuff that Osmosis has been working on for a while as well.
Okay.
I feel it's the Hub's version of these things. I feel like there's all these categories almost, how to do MEV, how to do staking derivatives, how to do allocation system, and both Osmosis and the Hub have different flavors of each one. And I think people will pick which one that the flavors that make more sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah.
I think tokenomics wise, Osmo is pretty cool. There's a
Yeah.
cap, right?
I think one thing people don't realize about Osmo tokenomics is that it is actually fixed cap, right?
Yeah.
And so people are like, oh, it's this like super inflationary thing, and it's really not.
I mean, of
right?
course, in the beginning it had to be because you have to roll it out. But that's also why everybody enjoyed crazy APRs.
Initially, what we needed was a distribution. We didn't have
Exactly.
a distribution.
Yeah.
We did, Osmosis never had any sort of ICO or anything, right? So
Yeah.
we're like, okay, we can do a little bit of an airdrop to have some initial distribution, but really we want the airdrop to go to people who are committed to Osmosis, right? And how did we measure that? We were like, okay, well, who's providing liquidity, right? And that's just the way of, what it was an extended ICO, right?
Yeah.
The super high inflation over the first few years was to do the initial distribution to the early adopters of the protocol.
So before we wrap up here, what was the sort of highlights? Let's talk about the legendary stuff that happened,
Crazy stuff.
the legends that were made.
No, I mean, obviously, Jacob's tattoo is incredible. I think it also came out really nice. Like the guy, and the guy, I know this guy for a couple of years, the tattoo artist, very nice guy. And he literally, this is last minute stuff, right? And he just brought a table, he brought his stuff. And then people just came right next to the DJ at like 2 a.m. and they showed like, I want this picture on, I want this tattooed on my neck or whatever. And he just had a piece of paper and then he with a pen he just wrote over it and he just made it like freehand. Like he didn't have real equipment, but the way it came out, I think it's incredible. So
for maybe for the epicenter listeners here who are not familiar with this whole story, so like Jacob Gadikian, who is founder of Notional, it's a validator, also like contributor to the ecosystem, has been talking on Twitter for some time now that he would get an Osmosis tattoo and maybe some other tattoos. And what was your role in organizing this and making this happen?
I have nothing to do with it.
I mean, you got the tattoo artist.
I got it. No, I mean, of course, like Jacob said it. I'm like, I can get it for you, and we got it done. But I think one of the conditions was that he would overtake Wasmongton in the validator set.
Yeah.
And I think on the day, a few hours before it actually happened. So I don't know who contributed to that, but I think it was just fun to see how the community is passionate about it, and
the scene when this happened, like we're downstairs. So it was in this club, and you guys can go on Twitter and like find videos of this, but it was in this club. And there's like a DJ up there, and then because there was like this kind of higher spot, right? And he was there in the corner with this light, and it was such an interesting scene. It felt like, I don't know, some like mob boss, up there, sort of looking over like all of his subjects. It was such a cool.
There's an incredible
experience.
Picture on Twitter where he's like
holding the phone,
and you in the background, and Ethan and Yelena and the tattoo artist, and it's crazy. But
it's like this thing will be memed for years.
And I thought it's Jacob and the Quasar co-founder. He also wanted to make one, but the tattoo artist told me that nearly 20 people made a tattoo there.
Wow. And some people got
That's
lifetime
really
access
crazy.
to Cosmoverse. Yeah. Is that
I don't
real?
know. I mean,
Some people got Cosmoverse.
There was a guy at 1 a.m. and then I stood next to him and he wrote something on Telegram and he showed it to me and I just said, yeah, sure. Like, yeah. And then he sent it and like, yeah, Cryptocito stood next to me and like, we got approval. I'm like, I don't know. I don't even know if anybody did it, but
some people did get like the kind of Cosmos Zero thing. Yeah.
But yeah, crazy. But I think this is, the first time also that everyone is coming together and partying, having a good time. I think it's also super necessary because after all, it's like behind the crypto ticker on CoinGecko, there's like people, right?
Yeah.
And you can see that some people like techno. You can see what's their favorite drinks. You have cool conversations with them. You can, I had a shisha with Ethan Buckman. I didn't have one with you, Ed, and I'm angry about this because you promised it to me.
I'm here for a few more days.
I don't know. I'm salty now, but it's just cool to really truly meet. And sure, again, you've seen the talks, you've seen the announcements. Coins didn't pump, but that's just the surface. Like what's behind this is like all the conversations. I just talked with Dan Lynch in the hallway, and he's like, "Man, there's so cool tooling that we're building, and like I'm super excited, and Jake is super excited, and like just all the builders and the community coming together and talking, meeting each other, building friendships, relationships. I think that's the real value of these events. So yeah, really pumped.
Yeah.
But I need 2 weeks off now.
Yeah.
I need sleep.
What's next for you? Are you going to take some vacation?
I'm gonna stay here for a little bit, 2 weeks probably, and then
You going to Lisbon?
these Dominicans are like, come to the Punta Cana. It's so close. Like I'm just probably gonna go there, and then from there back to Lisbon. And,
Yeah. Will you be in
Yeah.
Lisbon like in November when all this stuff's
Yes.
happening? Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be
Yeah.
there till mid next year for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
I think we can. I think we'd say this is a good note to end on. And we
yeah.
can wrap
it
this
was a
up.
good episode. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for doing this, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
It's
thanks
been
for
a
being
pleasure.
on.
Yeah. I actually like being on the other side.
I know.
It's more chill, more relaxed. So yeah, this was cool.
And thanks to everyone who's watching. See you next time.
Cheers.
Oh, camera's over here. Yeah. All right.